Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, announcement time, scholarship, $3,000. We're giving it away to a graduate student in mental health who has already made a difference in the world and is planning on making a difference and needs that money for their tuition. So direct them to go to the website, psychologyseattle.com, scholarship button, fill out the essay. The deadline is July 15th, 2022. And after that point, we'll be selecting our winner and awarding the $3,000 for their tuition. We'll make the announcement during our live show. It's going to be our 14-year anniversary. September 17th and 18th, we're going to live stream for 7 hours on each day. Usually we live stream for the entire time, but like last year for our 13th anniversary, we live streamed for 13 hours straight. We're getting old. We can't do 14 hours. At some point, we're going to have to break this up. So we're going to do 7 hours on Saturday, 7 hours on Sunday. Again, September 17, 18. We'll announce the winner then. Anyway, let's watch the show.
In Egypt, no one never will ask this kind of question. She's sitting, talking about sex, talking about, are you watching porno or not? I don't want to be here. But I'm doing that for Yve.
Great, but you came to America. Now, not every American would be like this. In fact, I would imagine this is a bit of an outlier sort of conversation, but it's not unheard of course. And I always just wonder about either direction personally. When people go to Egypt, they're like, how come I have to comply with all these weird ideas? And then when people come to the States, it's like, I don't want to deal with it. It's like, what did you think the United States was like that we didn't have? Anyway. Now, you can say, as Mohamed, I don't want to have a conversation like that. That's not the sort of person I am, and I don't like, that's fine. But to just say, I don't understand why this is happening. You're in the States, so I don't know.
I went to her profile.
Oh, so you used to be like
I texted you first.
Yes. Okay. I understand that in the picture she was wearing a bikini, right? That you saw her in. But I understand it's now a problem for her to maybe wear a bikini.
Like, is this freaking you out?
Got a lot of it going on.
Yeah, again, a good conversation to have. I would wish that Yve could have this conversation with him in private, because I don't think he's going to be very comfortable talking about this. Maybe he will. It's a very worthy conversation, and this makes me wonder if for Yve, she's much more passive, in a negative way for her, that her friends, because from the beginning of the season, her friends seem to believe that they have to have this conversation. Because if I were Yve's friend, I would never impose this on him. I'd be like, so how do you feel? I would ask her, how do you feel about the fact that he has this kind of double standard? He was attracted to you with the bikini, but now he's saying you can never. Do you want to live that kind of life? Is that really what you want? Do you feel safe to oppose? I wouldn't just go straight, because that's a triangulation, right? They're seeing the conflict or the tension between, or they're imagining it's there, and it is, between Yve and Mohamed. And instead of trying to help them work it out amongst themselves, they're taking over. And now the conflict, instead of being between Yve and Mohamed, is now between friends and Mohamed. And then that will triangulate Yve in, and Yve will probably try to save the situation. And then everyone just goes back to the same homeostasis in which they never talk about it.
Here, like, he was nervous about me not wearing this dress and like my butt was showing. I was gonna wear a shorter jacket, and then he was like, your butt is gonna show. I called Mohamed out because he was being controlling.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see some of that passivity that I was talking about with Yve, that while they were having the discussions at home about her dress, she was a little bothered by it, but for the most part, just going along with it. It's like, is this okay? Because he was like, I need you to change that jacket. She's like, okay, so she changes the jacket. And now that her friends are here, she feels emboldened to confront him on that. And that's just not the way you're triangulating these other people. You want to have those conversations behind closed doors, because for him, this could be very hurtful. He's like, so earlier you were fine with this. Now you're blasting me. And now everyone's going to hate me. So thanks a lot. Like, you could have been more upfront with me originally, which let's have that conversation, but don't bring it out in front of your friends. And now you reveal that you're not, like, so you were hiding this from me, that you were upset. It's not a good feeling when you're in Mohammed's shoes. She has every right to not want to comply with his controlling ideas of what she's supposed to marry. Absolutely. What she's supposed to wear. but she should be giving him the respect to actually tell him. And that's something that is deceptive to a lot of people, because you can look at this and be like, well, good for her. She's letting him have it. And it's like, yes, but she should be able. Now, she could say, I don't feel safe to say anything if my friends aren't. I need that support. Okay, but that's not the end goal. You don't want to only be able to confront your partner if your friends are around. You want to be able to tell your partner so that it's not humiliating to them and they don't feel ganged up on, right? Takes time. Assertiveness takes time. Maybe the partner is being over controlling and that has to stop. But we don't want to land on a place of like, well, whenever I have a problem, I'm not going to say anything until other people are around, and then I'm going to let them have it.
Like right before we went out to dinner. So I felt like I had to stand up for myself because it wasn't true what he was saying. And that doesn't feel good to me.
So that's a protection for the woman, because you don't know the intention of other people.
Yeah. So I don't understand it. I find it to be weird to, like, essentially what it is it's an acknowledgement of, it's a passive acceptance that men can do what they want to women in a variety of ways. One is, of course, they can control how they dress. But two, if a woman is dressed a little bit less conservatively and she is assaulted, then, well, you called it on yourself. Instead of holding the assaulter, the criminal responsible, the man, well, we can't do that. We have to blame the woman. So it's the woman's fault. It's always the woman's fault. So always be covered head to toe, and then we won't be able to blame you because you're not attracting them. But we still might be able to blame you because you were not around me. There's always some blaming of the woman, and that's the patriarchy, that's misogyny, it's sexism. And now, could someone convince me that there's some other interpretation of that? Maybe, but I've looked into this a lot, talked with a lot of individuals. There's a lot of discourse around this, and yeah. So he just said why, that he's saying, well, you don't know the intentions of other people, meaning that if she dresses in a more revealing way, you don't know if other men are going to want to hurt you. Now, another aspect to this is that it's a possessive thing, right? That I don't want any other men looking at my woman in that way. And that, so therefore I'm going to impose my control over her, even though she doesn't want me to do that, because I don't want anyone else looking at her or talking to her. It's a possessive, jealous thing, which is just not a good solution. It's oppressive to the other individual. It's controlling. It's potentially abusive. Now, could I be convinced of a nuance to this? Sure, but I don't know.
It's like, I get it, but it's like, my husband's different. He's confident in who he is as a man. He doesn't tell me what to wear.
I never think Yve is dressed inappropriate or in a bad way.
Well, Yve chose me, so she know me before I was clear about what I like and what I don't like.
Right. So that's true. If they had conversations, I don't think they did, or at least she wasn't honest about her feelings about it. At least he's under the impression that we've talked about this, that my morals and values and culture, and you agreed to comply with all of it. I mean, I'm guessing that there was at least a strong implication of that, if not a direct communication from Yve along those lines. And so he's like, look, you can have your culture, women, but she's already agreed to this, so I don't know what the deal is here, but it doesn't sound like she's really on board with it, obviously.
No?
Was that clear, Yve?
I mean, it's not that clear cut. It really, I'm sorry, it's not.
You didn't come to Egypt and saw how...
We're not in Egypt.
When men try to tell women...
Do you see how stunted her communication is? If she said something like, look, honey, I get it. You have your culture and you want a certain thing, but I just don't want to do all of it. I want to do some of it. I don't want to do all of it. And I don't like being told what to dress. I'll adjust to some extent. I won't wear a bikini around. Okay, fine. But I like this dress. This is me. This is who I am. And I don't know if I can compromise in that. And so how do you feel about that? But nothing along those lines. It was, let's rewind that, because I think we're seeing, I don't know, maybe it's edited that way or blah, 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 but she's coming across as passive. It's easy to look at him and say, like, what's wrong with him? And, we could absolutely do that. But she's a part of the equation in all likelihood, given her passivity, given the fact that unless her friends are around, and even when her friends are around, she's not really very communicative or forward about this sort of thing. But just watch the way she's given this opportunity. The mic has been passed to her, and she can say something that is assertive and says, I get you, I love you, and we need to talk about this maybe when my friends aren't here, but I didn't appreciate what happened earlier. I get you, but I feel like we need to figure out a different way of negotiating this preference of yours. That's pretty, high level, but something in that direction. But let's watch.
Don't like, no.
Was that clear, Eve?
I mean, it's not that clear cut. It really, I'm sorry, it's not.
You didn't come to Egypt and saw how.
We're not in Egypt.
So now it's edited, so who knows what really happened. But she comes across as someone, she's saying and then turning away. She's not just saying, hey, just say what you want and ask him if that's okay. Just work it out. But it's these very, tangential statements. You throw it over the wall and then you run away. And I'm just guessing that when her friends aren't around, and we even saw that, she doesn't say anything, which is part of that equation, right? Both people are participating in the problem, and it could destroy them if they don't address it. He has to, really, when I work with couples like this, she's the one that has to change, because I can't tell him to stop necessarily unless she tells him to stop. I can't, that's a temptation that a lot of couples therapists will fall into, is that we'll be triangulated. I'll attack him, be like, hey, it's sexist, or you got it. But that's not functional. They have to work it out amongst themselves. And when I fall into that trap, countertransference wise, and I step in, the Yves of the world will often start attacking me because they're now off the hook in terms of saying, they're like, oh, okay, I don't have to say it. My therapist is saying it, but I also don't want to come across like I agree with that. So I'm going to jump in and say, oh, sorry, honey, the therapist is wrong, or it's a weird dynamic you get into. The best thing is if I help Yve know herself, know her feelings, speak her feelings right up front, face to face, eye to eye, and while saying things like, how do you feel about that? Let's work this out. I don't see anything close to that. So that worries me.
When men try to tell women what to wear, it's never in a positive way, like how you're saying, if you're trying to protect her. It's more of controlling.
I don't know, why women over here feeling like they doesn't want to be controlled.
Yeah, I've already been. It's fine. It's not fine. It's not fine. Okay, so long time ago, I received an email. This is 10 years ago-ish. I've been doing the podcast for 14 years and talking about topics like this since the beginning. And I received an email, went back and forth with a woman from Saudi Arabia. And we had a long, back and forth. And the conclusion, the learning that I had after talking with her was that because, it's related to what I was saying earlier, because you're born into a culture and there's so much pressure to comply and to be a certain way, and you internalize it, right? You start thinking as a woman that, or I guess as a man, you just start believing in the notions of the culture, that women want to be controlled, that they don't want to be in control of their own lives. They want someone to protect them. They want someone to work. They don't want to leave the house because it's scary to leave the house. And of course, if you never let someone leave the house or drive or anything, then yeah, leaving the house and driving will be scary because you never let them learn. It's scary for everyone, but with men, you let them actually go through that fear and learn and become competent. With women, you don't. And then when the woman is 45 years old and is terrified of leaving the house and is terrified of driving, you say that's evidence that men and women are different. Women are not competent, they're weak, that kind of stuff. And so there's these notions that will get passed down literally through centuries that women want to be controlled in general. Now, some people, individuals, if they're given the freedom, even in the United States, will say, I don't want to be in charge of X, Y, and Z. I don't want to be in charge of the automobiles. I don't want to be in charge of the bills. I don't want to work outside the house. I like it at home. That's fine. If they have choices, if they feel safe to explore who they are and assert that. So there's nothing wrong with, someone, if given the freedom, has that point of view or that experience or something. But of course, when you just apply it in a blanket manner to literally everyone in society, then you get what we see here.
I know you're seeing it.
That's talking about that, not going to change my mind.
I'm concerned that he's this controlling tyrant, and I would hate for her just to compromise to a union that I think should accept you fully as you are.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of manifestations of this culture clash, but this one is a little bit more concerned. With Zied and Rebecca, for example, I think at the beginning I was a little worried when they were in Tunisia, I believe, and she was leaving their apartment or hotel room, and he's like, you got to and they had a fight about it, and she's like, no, this is who I am. I'm not going to compromise. I compromised for my last trip. And I was like, oh, where's this going? But, they worked it out. They listened to each other. They compromised. Zied is absolutely flexible in the end. But with this one, I wonder. And again, it's the beginning or the mid-season, so usually they have to have some sort of major conflict that they have to drum up sometimes. But I don't know. I'm seeing a dynamic between the two of them that I think will lend itself to this blowing up, because who knows, but inside of her, there might be this growing feeling of, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't like this, I don't like this, but she doesn't tell him directly, and then it explodes later on. I don't know.
And that's just showing how stupid they are,
Okay, we're definitely seeing a side of Mohamed we haven't seen yet, which is worrisome. I would have thought that he would have been more just nice. Just be like, yeah, I get it, but this is how I am, and Yve already agreed to that, right? More Zied-like. This is more aggressive, judgmental, calling people names, rigid. So, worrisome. All right, well, that does it for that episode. If you want to give a super thanks below, that's a new thing that people are doing. I check those super thanks frequently and will thank people or respond if there's a question or something. And also become a patron of the podcast. That's the best way, honestly. If you want to support this channel or what I do here, you can become a patron. And thank you to everyone who already has become a patron. And if you want to become an upper tier patron, that's also appreciated. Only if you want to, only if you can afford it. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.